Welcome to today's Explainer. We're looking at a truly fascinating yet frankly terrifying medical mystery today. So we're starting right in an emergency room. A 30-year-old woman, who we'll call CW, has just arrived in a completely bizarre critical state. She's incredibly nauseous, sweating buckets, and her body is behaving in a way that is just utterly baffling her doctors. We're going to unpack the exact science of what's happening inside her body and see how a seemingly normal, everyday habit turned into a deadly weapon. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. We are facing an impossible biological paradox as these ER doctors desperately try to save CW's life. Now, normally, your body's in one state or the other, right? You're either panicked and ready to run, or you're calm and processing energy. But CW's body? It's displaying massive, overwhelming signs of both of these states at the exact same time. It's a physiological impossibility, and it's literally tearing her system apart.
When she first gets there, her heart rate is sitting at 140 beats per minute. That is a massive fight or flight response. But then, just a short time later, right there in the hospital bed, it violently plunges down to just 40 beats per minute. This terrifyingly rapid drop tells the medical team one crucial thing. Whatever is attacking her system is moving incredibly fast, and they have very little time left to figure out what's happening before her body simply shuts down completely.
These contradictory symptoms paint a picture of absolute chaos inside her. Initially, it looked exactly like she had taken a massive stimulant. We're talking high blood pressure, super fast breathing. The doctors could actually smell alcohol on her, but then suddenly her breaths became incredibly shallow, her oxygen dropped, and her blood pressure just plummeted. She was sweating excessively in a cool room, producing a massive amount of saliva, and her pupils were completely unreactive to light. Basically, she was rapidly shifting into a severe depressant response.
So to understand why this is so catastrophic, we really have to look at the nervous system. The sympathetic system controls that famous fight or flight response, while the parasympathetic system controls rest and digest. What you really need to know here is that these are two divisions of the exact same nervous system. CW's body is acting as if it's being violently yanked from a massive sympathetic fight or flight response directly into a severe parasympathetic rest and digest one. Think of it like slamming on the gas pedal and ripping the emergency brake on your car at the exact same time.
Let's break down exactly how these nerves communicate so we can see where the glitch actually is. It happens in 4 main steps. A nerve sends a signal, chemicals are released at the gap between nerves, which is called the synapse. Then the next nerve's receptor binds to that chemical to pass the message on. And finally, and this part is absolutely key, the terminal has to be cleared of those chemicals to stop the signal. Now, the sympathetic system ends its signals with a chemical called noradrenaline, but the parasympathetic system ends with a chemical called acetylcholine. Interestingly enough, both systems actually start their signals with the exact same chemical, acetylcholine.
And this brilliantly illustrates our problem. Because both systems start with acetylcholine, a massive flood of it triggers both systems simultaneously. But it's the receptors that really solve the mystery for us. See, the muscarinic receptor takes acetylcholine, but it doesn't affect breathing. The nicotinic receptor, however, definitely does affect breathing. If these are flooded, you get shallow breathing, or no breathing at all. By mapping out how these different receptors react, the doctors deduced that a flood of a chemical perfectly matching the nicotinic receptors was what caused CW's precise breathing crisis.
Which brings us to the actual culprit here, nicotine. Here is the massive glitch in the system. Nicotine acts just like acetylcholine. Initially, it triggers the sympathetic nervous system as a stimulant, which totally explains CW's initial racing heart rate of 140. But in massive, toxic amounts, after it's done sending that stimulant response, it feeds right into the parasympathetic nervous system. The receptors get totally flooded, they don't clear out, and it creates a continuous, inappropriate, non-stop rest and digest signal that basically drags the whole body to a halt.
The physical consequences of this kind of flood are just devastating. Excess nicotine takes the place of acetylcholine and physically constricts the smooth muscles in the airways, quite literally choking off the ability to breathe. Furthermore, because nicotinic receptors are also located up in the brain, flooding them causes chaotic electrical discharges. This massive release of unregulated electrical activity caused the seizures CW experienced, and it explains exactly why her pupils completely stopped reacting to light. Her brain's basic reflexes were just short-circuiting.
Highly suspecting a poison at this point, the doctor sent a blood sample to the lab, and the results were absolutely shocking. To put it into perspective, the amount of nicotine floating around in CW's blood was the equivalent of smoking 215 whole cigarettes simultaneously in one single puff. No way anyone survives that naturally.
So, now that we've solved the microscopic biological mystery, we have to pivot back to the macro investigation. Where on earth did this massive dose of nicotine come from? At this point in the hospital, CW's breathing has failed, doctors have intubated her so a machine can breathe for her, and they've officially called the authorities. We are now looking at a potential crime scene.
Let's look at the background established by the authorities, just laying out the narrative without taking any sides and impartially reporting the facts of the investigation. CW was married to a man named Eric. His business was booming, but his constant work apparently left CW feeling pretty neglected. The investigation revealed that CW was having an affair with Mike, who happened to be her best friend's brother. Eric discovered this whole thing after noticing some strange texts on her phone from someone conspicuously saved as Pizza Hut, and then finding a shirt that definitely wasn't his in their bed, a shirt he later saw Mike actually wearing. Simmering underneath all of this tension was CW's vaping habit, which she manually filled with e-liquid. Eric secretly despised this habit, and she reportedly used it more when she knew it annoyed him.
So here is how that fateful evening actually unfolded. Eric and CW were having a rare date night at home, and Eric poured some pre-mixed drinks. As the evening progressed and CW got a bit tipsy, Eric secretly took her own manually filled e-cigarette nicotine liquid and poured it directly right into her glass. CW apparently complained of a horrible taste and a severe burning sensation piercing her chest, but Eric just dismissed it. In the middle of the night, obviously knowing something was terribly wrong, CW woke up and ran to the bathroom, vomiting before struggling to call an ambulance.
The investigation essentially revealed what was a heavily flawed attempt at the perfect crime. You see, the human body naturally breaks down about half of the nicotine in its system every 2 hours. Eric's chilling logic was that the massive dose would simply cause her to stop breathing in her sleep. If she was found hours later with her heart stopped and her brain damaged, well, no one would specifically screen for acute liquid nicotine. Any trace amounts left over would just be written off as part of her known vaping habit. His calculation was ruined only because she woke up and vomited, though the dose her body had already absorbed was still incredibly lethal.
There is a really fascinating historical and chemical parallel we can draw here. You know, plants actually use nicotine as a natural defense. It's a neurotoxin meant to fight off pests. Back in the 1850s, scientists created synthetic pesticides called organophosphates. Both of these result in a non-stop rest and digest signal in the body, but through brilliantly different mechanisms. Nicotine perfectly mimics acetylcholine right where the nerve signal starts. Organophosphates, on the other hand, stop acetylcholine from being broken down where the signal ends. So it's completely different biological routes, but the exact same catastrophic destination.
Because of this striking similarity, the doctors attempted a really desperate medical intervention. There's actually no direct antidote for acute nicotine poisoning. Doctors administered a drug called atropine. Now, atropine is an anticholinergic drug that is successfully used as an antidote for those organophosphate pesticide poisonings we just talked about. However, while it works great for pesticides, atropine primarily acts on muscarinic receptors, not the nicotinic receptors that the e-liquid was actively flooding. Tragically, they had the right idea, just the wrong receptor, and it simply couldn't stop the runaway chemical cascade in CW's body.
So the crucial point here is that by the time the poison was finally identified, it was tragically too late. Despite the ventilator breathing for her, CW's heart eventually stopped in the intensive care unit, and doctors were completely unable to resuscitate her. The autopsy confirmed the devastating effects of the neurotoxin. She had severe brain damage from low oxygen, and parts of her brain had actually died and swelled against her skull due to the massive overexcitation of her cells. Confronted with the mountain of evidence by authorities, Eric confessed to the poisoning and was sentenced.
While this specific case involves an intentional poisoning, the danger of concentrated liquid nicotine is honestly much broader than you might think. Between 2011, which is roughly when e-cigarettes really became prominent, and 2024, America's poison centers received 54,000 reports of toxic e-cigarette and liquid nicotine exposures. 54,000. And keep in mind, those are just the reported cases in a single country.
This builds into a really critical real-world warning. Of those 54,000 cases, more than half involved accidental exposures in children under 6 years old. Nicotine works directly on the nervous system, meaning an accidental ingestion of these highly concentrated liquids by a young child whose brain is still very much developing isn't just dangerous. It can profoundly impact their neurological development or even trigger the exact same respiratory crisis we just explored with CW.
The source material for this case leaves us with a very simple core takeaway rule when it comes to these types of chemicals. If you don't need to put it in your body, don't put it in your body. It's a truly tragic reflection on CW's story, where a totally everyday habit just a bottle of liquid sitting out on a kitchen counter, was so easily weaponized because of how potently it reacts with our baseline biology. Which leaves us with this final thought to consider today. What happens when our everyday habits become the perfect camouflage for something far more sinister? We surround ourselves with synthesized chemicals, stimulants, and depressants every single day, completely trusting the boundaries of their intended use. But as this explainer clearly shows, the line between a casual habit and a catastrophic biological short circuit is incredibly thin. Keep questioning the science behind what you consume, and I really hope this deep dive has empowered you with a better understanding of the incredible, yet fragile machine that is the human nervous system.